Brian, are you ready? Good evening. I would like to call the tax levy meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome not only our board members, administrators, and our partners over there to our meeting tonight. And Dr. Brown, who is joining us remote. So the first thing I want to note that we are missing 2 board members. We only have 5 here, and we have Dawn Hendricks and Heather Murray is not available tonight. First, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So move. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I've received no public comments for the meeting. So the main purpose of the meeting tonight is to look at our 2025 budget approval and our tax levy approval. And I will turn it over to Steve to help us through.
Thank you, Joan. I appreciate that. First of all, I want to thank the board members for being flexible and being willing to meet tonight. Typically, we have this meeting on Monday, but I did need a few extra days after getting back from a presentation I was at last week, so thank you for being willing to move the date. So we're going to work off of the presentation, Rebecca, the one that says special board meeting right there. And so I'm going to talk through some of the major topics regarding the budget and tax levy, and then certainly we'll open it up to any questions or comments that any board members have. So Rebecca, I will just take the mouse if you don't mind. If I can get it to work. I'll try this one.
That one?
Okay, this one works.
Oh,
Okay, so to begin with, back in the month of July, the board did approve the 3rd draft of the budget that we did present to the annual meeting in the month of August. So the tax levy was approved. We did spend a lot of time, of course, talking through the state budget and the implications for schools back during the month of July, as well as the board retreat that took place in August. So this is a starting point really for this discussion tonight. Next, I want to review the information that's really new since we've last asked for a board approval on the topic of the budget. And what's new is the student count. So the student count took place during the 3rd Friday in September. You've seen the information before from the October board meeting. The bottom line is, as you know, we did see a decline in our student enrollment. I'm going to show you on the state's revenue limit formula what that looks like in a moment. But so this is a new situation for us to be a declining enrollment school over the last 3 years. Another topic we've talked about since July is the fact that 71% of school districts in the state of Wisconsin have received a decline in what's called state equalization aid. The state budget did not include an increase in state equalization aid funding. Back in July, we believed that our funding was going to be reduced by about $1.1 million. In the end, it turned out to be about $1.3 million. So it was a little bit higher than what was originally predicted. The reason for that, according to my understanding, is some accounting challenges that the DPI is still working through with at least one of the larger districts in the state. On October 1st, we did receive our property values, which are identified at $5.5 billion across the entire district. And then you would see what the tax rate is. In addition to the information that I just reviewed, the state's revenue limit worksheet is finalized in October as well as all of our grants that we have in the district. In Fund 10, there are a number of changes that we need to make when we're revising the budget in October. Examples of that is we now know the open enrollment students who actually did attend in Waunakee, As a board, you set your policy limits in January. You then approve or deny applications in May, but we really don't know until the fall who's actually attending. So what you see on this slide are the various revenue items that needed to be updated just based on changes that take place at this time of the year. In addition to that, on the expenditure side, there are a number of changes that are required to be made as well at this time of the year. A good example of that would be open enrollment students out. We now know which students have chosen to attend another school district, so now we're able to know what those costs are. Another example is we post the actual salary and benefits from all of our new hires once we know who everybody's been hired and the benefits they've chosen. So we're able to present right now the most accurate picture of our budget at this time of the year. In special education, we are able to update any changes that take place as well on staffing, just like in Fund 10, the new hires, the benefits they've chosen. We're able to get that as accurate as we possibly can. I will note the budget does include the addition of a 1.0 paraeducator at Arboretum Elementary School. That was based on an evaluation for a student that was new to us. We have had a substitute paraeducator with the student from the beginning of the year. We did realize right away that the student did need services, and so this is a process that needed to take place once the student arrived here. And so we are including a 1.0 paraeducator. The student's IEP has now been completed and the evaluation is done. And these services were needed for that student in their IEP plan. In Fund 39, I'm going to come back and talk about this in a little bit, but the decreased property tax levy is aligned with the board's goals that you identified in August to present to the community a lower tax levy than what the board is actually allowed to approve in the revenue limit formula. So we'll come back to that. In Fund 49, our construction expenses are a little bit lower than what we had originally projected because the pace of the middle school has been, as you know, it's been a very accelerated pace. The project's going very well. So it's moving along, and we're hoping to open up the middle school with next year's summer school. So our bills are running a little ahead of schedule. The total amount isn't ahead of schedule. It's just the payment of them because of the progress that's being made. Our post-employment benefits trust fund, we have to wait until we know who retired at the end of the 24-25 year to adjust that budget. In Fund 80, again, we're able to post our actual salary and benefits for the staff who work in that program. And in Fund 99, if you can remember a few months ago, the Fund 99 staff was in to let you know about the conclusion of the new teacher program in Waunakee, and that's moving to CISA moving forward. So we're completing our final payment there for that program. In board book, there's the fourth draft of the budget. There's the DPI's required format for budget adoption, and then we're going to take a look at the revenue limit formula in just a moment. The fourth draft of the budget includes what you see on the screen. So back in July, this is a snippet of all of the funds on what their totals were, and at the bottom is a snippet of all of the funds and their totals as of October. So the tax levy has been a very important conversation for the board since we learned about the state budget outcome back in July. So I want to talk a little bit about the tax levy to make sure the board understands how administratively we reacted to the goals that you identified and what the budget committee laid out for us in September. So to begin with, we do have new construction in our community. That was estimated about 2.6%. We don't actually get that information for the school district. We have to estimate it based on our municipalities. We believe that's in the 2.6 range, or it's probably a little bit higher due to Bishop's Bay, but that's close. On October 1st, the property values in the community increased by 9.6%. One of the things that I do talk about in the property tax levy space is that it's really important to know the difference between equalized value going up and new construction. Because equalized value going up in and of itself is just taxing the same people. And that's an issue that occurs in a lot of school districts when they pass referendums. They show plans that show the tax levy going down, but they don't have new construction. So they're really actually taxing the same people in the end, actually more. So it's always important to know that there is some net new construction in that number for most communities. Ours is a more significant number, but we want to be aware of the fact that the majority of the property value increase is really the same homes that were here the year before. We do need to, finalize the revenue limit formula. We're going to talk about the decrease in the Fund 39 levy. So during the month of September, following up from the board retreat, the budget committee gave administration direction to reduce the property tax levy to get back to the level that was approved by the board in the second draft of the budget, which happened before the state budget was passed. So that was basically a 5.97% increase in the tax levy. Once the state budget was passed, it went up to 10.4%. So the budget committee directed administration to bring back a budget tonight that reduced that dollar amount down to the 5.97. So it's important to note that the reduction is possible because of the use of one or more of the following financial strategies. One option is to refinance existing debt. So the budget committee did see a plan from our financial advisor that showed how debt that's out there for the intermediate school could be refinanced. Another strategy is to utilize November 2022 referendum project savings. So as a board, you do know that the projects are going incredibly well and there are savings there that ultimately in the end, you as a board will decide what we're going to do with. And then number 3, we do have a clean energy rebate from the federal government that was over $1 million. And again, you as a board can use that for anything you want. And you also know a much larger one is coming for the middle school. So the utilization of the clean energy rebates is completely a decision by the board. You can use those funds in any way that you want. And then the final tax rate would be 8.6%. So for the community to know what the board is doing is reacting to the state budget that would have led to a possible tax increase of 10.4% by reducing it back to what we were planning prior to the state budget passing. We are in a position where utilizing one or more of those strategies would allow us to get that property tax levy back to a more manageable number. So ultimately in 2026, the budget committee will need to make some type of recommendation to the full board about how to handle that. So that's still a to be determined. So the tax levy in July, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner of the July graph, was 10.4%. And what you can see in October of 25 in the lower right-hand corner is 6%, which is really rounded up from 5.97%. And so that does meet the directive of the budget committee that was given in September to get the dollar amount back down to where it was before. The tax levy increase between 24-25 and 25-26 was 2.6 million. So one important thing to note about the increase is about 2.66% of that will be absorbed by brand new properties on the tax roll for the first time. That's an important thing that we always try to note in our district, that we are thankful that growth is occurring. because in our case, it absorbs, more than half of the increase. So as a result, the property tax levy decreases, the rate decreases to 8.6% compared to 8.9. On average, existing taxpayers will see a school property tax levy increase pretty consistent with the annual CPI. So as you know, the annual CPI for school employees last year was 2.95%. We're going to be in that range. And I'll talk a little bit more about how there's variations between municipalities. As a school board, you only really have the ability to approve a property tax levy on a very broad basis, and then it gets broken down by municipalities, and that's where things typically get interesting. But as a board, you can only plan at a higher level, and then it just distributes out in a different level based on each municipality. So every January, I do put on the school finance puzzle at the School Board Association, and one of the things I talk with school board members is the importance of this slide. And it's always surprising to people to see like how this looks in our district, because I do share our district's example. So in the lower right-hand corner, you will see our property tax levy of 5.97%. I've talked before how often, as a community member who might read in the Waunakee Tribune, school board approves 5.97% increase in the levy. They think that that's uniform across the entire school community, but the reality of what ends up happening is very different than that. So if you look at the city of Middleton, and if you look at the dollar difference column, there's only an $11,000 difference in school tax from last year to this year. And that's a 0.59% increase. And we know there are multiple homes that have been built out there that will completely absorb that. And so the actual situation for most City of Middleton, Waunakee School District properties is they're going to see a real decline. They're actually going to see their school property tax levy bill go down from what it was the year before. However, if you go back and look at this a year ago, the opposite was happening in the City of Middleton. They received a much larger portion of the increase that occurred last year. So this is typically how this balances off. A municipality might have a reassessment, or the state might believe that the values in that municipality have changed through the equalized value process. But you can see it is not an even distribution of the 5.97%. And again, when people call to ask for information about this, I do have to explain to them that the equalized value information is provided to the school district, and the district is required to allocate the levy out accordingly. The school board is not determining a property tax levy by municipality. You're determining a broad-based tax levy that gets broken out this way. Now, over time, it tends to even out, but you can see the differences. So like Westport is at 3.63%, while the district average is at 5.97%. So you can just see across the different municipalities what that looks like. It's just always important to know that the tax levy is distributed in a different manner depending on where you happen to live in the school district community. I do work with Annie to get communication out to individuals so they know what's going on with the tax levy. It's going to be important this year, if the board does approve the levy as presented, to make sure the community understands what the levy could have been versus what the board chose to do. That's part of Dr. Brown's thinking for having a meeting next month. There's two dates, or one date, but there's two times. We're going to do a morning session and an evening session to really explain to the community more deep information about the school budget, and this is certainly going to be one of those topics. And then in board book, we have the tax levy by municipality and then a tax levy explanation. I do want to go over some of the accomplishments from this year and then some of the risks that we face. I think it's important to know both. On the accomplishment side, I would say this has been a very good year for us to be able to make some of those longer term improvements that we've been looking to make in our budgeting process. We were able to add back into our budgeting process the annual post-employment benefit payment. We were able to create a termination benefits budget of $100,000. We were able to add $100,000 to the contingency budget. We were able to add $100,000 to the transportation budget. We discussed last year the challenges we were having with McKinney-Vento transportation or transportation outside of the district. We did add funding to our district legal budget. In new, you didn't know this before tonight, but we were able to work with the HR team to figure out a way to include next summer's projected health insurance increase into this year's budget. So that was new to us to be able to get that accomplished. So that's great that we were able to do that. On the risk side, high-cost special ed aid is certainly a benefit to us to have the program be increased to a 50% funding level this year. But the risk is it's a set dollar amount in the state budget, and there could be a significant increase in the number of districts who decide they now want to actually apply for these funds. So the more districts that apply, the more of a proration that ends up happening. So I just want you as board members to know that is completely out of our control. We have to pretty much sit back and wait until the spring to find out what's going to happen there. But that is a risk that if, as an example, every district in the state now decides to participate in this program, we're not going to hit our budget target. However, if the same level of participation goes moving forward, we very easily will. State special education aid, as you know, this has been another area of concern. Thankfully, the state did invest some significant resources into special education aid. The risk, again, is the claims that could occur from other districts outside of our control. The state is indicating that they expect the reimbursement level from the state budget to be in the 42 to 43% range. We have budgeted 40 because we have believed since late last spring, the state's estimates were off by 2%. So we're 2% below right now what the state budget has. But our estimating is based on what every other district does. So that there's a risk there. Our tax levy reduction of $2.3 million. So we're taking the tax levy reduction now, but we have to come up with a plan at some point in 2026. So we do have to do that. So that's just something we need to be thinking about. And then any additional staffing changes that occur during the year. There's always financial challenges that come up throughout a school year that we have to address. Joan, you had a question?
How much time do we have to make the decision on the 2.3 million? Do we have the entire year, the calendar year of 2026?
Yeah, that's a great question. So because we have existing equity or what's called a fund balance in our Fund 39, our debt service fund, we will be able to make our April 1st payments without making that decision by then. So we only make payments twice a year, April and October. We will need to have a plan finalized by October so that when we have our second payment of the year ready to go, we will know what it is that we decided to do. But we're in really good shape right now. We have plenty of time to talk this through, but we do know some type of decision will need to be made in 2026. So there's been a lot of accomplishments this year, a lot of positives coming out of the state budget. Our budget is in a much better place today than it was a year ago, which is great. I'm gonna come back to this. This is the slide where it says administration's recommending approval of the following, but I'll come back to this in just a moment. Before I go on to some next steps, Rebecca, would you be willing to bring up the revenue limit formula? There's just something I wanted to share with the board. Yeah, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the revenue limit formula, but there is something I do want you to be aware of. Rebecca, if you could go down to about the middle, a little bit further, like right, a little bit higher, right there. So line 2, if you look all the way to the right, shows 4,194 students. That's a 3-year average of our student count from 22, 23, and 24. The next line down shows the average from 2023, 24, and 25, and you see it's 4,179. That is what is defining us now as a declining enrollment district. In the short term, the state does provide financial support for declining enrollment districts. So if you look a little bit further down and see line 10B, declining enrollment exemption equals the $183,856. So while that is nice in the year that it's happening, it gets removed the year after. And then the formula starts over, recalculates, you're either declining enrollment or you're not. So the best year financially of being a declining enrollment school is the first year, because that 183 comes in, it's an added amount to our budget, but then moving forward, it would be better for us long-term not to be declining enrollment. The good news is when you look at the average, it's not, I mean, in that also looking at the senior class as the smallest class in the high school, it's possible we could pull out a declining enrollment by next fall. The 4K situation, which we'll talk a little bit about, is gonna have the greatest impact on whether we do or do not come out of the declining enrollment. I just wanted you to see this so you could see how it works. Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind popping back to the presentation. And then if you want to go back to the next steps, just to talk a little bit for the board about what's going to be coming up in the near future, and then we'll jump back to the requested approval. Okay, so budget committee meetings moving forward. We're going to be discussing some of the assumptions made. We want to make sure that we're aligned with the budget committee goals for projecting the end of the year balance. So things like special ed categorical aid. When we learn more about the statewide numbers, we will share that with the budget committee. We do want to discuss the 25-26 end of the year balance goals. As an example, last year the budget committee set a goal of 0. That should not be our goal this year because we do have the $1 million check that came in from the IRS. So if we don't spend that $1 million on the property tax levy, we should have a goal of at least adding $1 million into our fund balance for 25-26, but we can come back and talk about that at a future budget committee meeting. We're going to begin the 26-27 budget planning process. We're going to be creating a base plan, and we're going to be spending a lot of time on the next bullet point, creating options surrounding the 4K program. And then additional discussions, we want to have a discussion as well, a decision in December regarding what our 4K plans look like. We want to begin the conversation on transportation data for 26-27, specifically around middle school students who might lose transportation based on the hazardous changes that are going to go into effect next year. In January, we'd like to make a decision on transportation as well as open enrollment. We have planned or pegged a February decision on the $2.3 million. However, Joan asked a great question earlier. It doesn't have to be then. We just want to get it on the schedule so that we're going to be working on it at some point. All right, Rebecca, if you want to go to the next slide.
Steve, can I just On the 4K program.
If you want to
it
go back,
says
Rebecca, up.
You want a decision in December. When will we start talking about those options?
Yeah, so great question. So the Budget Committee has a meeting scheduled for next Friday. Our data system that we use to project budgeting has now been uploaded with all the information you're seeing tonight. And actually tomorrow I'm going to spend about 3 hours on this to try to get ready for next Friday. And we will begin showing the Budget Committee options for 4K.
Oh, so it's gonna go through budget?
It's gonna go through Budget Committee. The timing, I would say, is out of our hands because the state budget has created a February 1st timeline for centers to have to indicate whether or not they're choosing to partner with the state or continuing to partner with us. Our partners are certainly going to be asking and wanting to understand the board's position on this topic in advance of that date, which may or may not impact their decision. Some of them may have made up their mind already based on what they know, but I think most of them would prefer to know what the school board's perspective on this topic is first. Which is why Dr. Brown, if you go look in my office, charted all of this out the other day. And so that bottom part where you've got the discussions moving forward was her thought process that she wanted to share about sketching this work out over the next couple of months. It's a lot, but it really does need to be discussed. I don't know, Dr. Brown, did you want to say anything on this?
No, I think that's it for now. So just to reiterate, a really big decision we'll need for you to make in a very short period of time is what we would need for you to embrace. And we do feel pretty good about the options that we will bring forth. And so I think we're in a good place. And so next Friday, if you're able to come to the budget meeting next Friday, that would be great. Otherwise, if you're unable to, please avail yourself to the recording afterwards so that you have all of the information to then move to the board meeting in December.
Is there, at this point, a plan to have any follow-up discussion with the daycare owners? Because just, like, the day after the meeting about 4K, the owner of my kid's daycare, like, stopped me and was like, I have so many questions. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot that they still want to understand.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great point. What Carly's referring to is Dr. Brown, myself, Miranda, Mo, who's our 4K coordinator. We had a meeting with all of our current partners at the library. And basically that meeting was a let's all get on the same page with what was included in the state budget. So we focused really on information sharing. What did we know? We asked our centers to share what they knew. There were some insights from from the centers who had information that they shared with us as well. So it was a really good discussion. We did share with them our thought process, which was to begin sharing scenarios with the school board as soon as possible, be getting school board feedback, and then ultimately, as soon as we could, re-engage with them to begin that conversation. But yeah, there's a lot of questions, Carly. That's a great point. School districts have questions. The centers have questions. It's a huge decision one way or another. On the school district end, as you know, you could see the count for this year, but we're typically in the 240 student range. So for the school district, there's no question it's more than $1 million decision. For the centers, it's a decision about their business that affects them significantly. So both parties, this is a major decision. Were you saying something, Dr. Brown? Wasn't sure if you were.
No,
Okay.
you captured it. I was just answering the question, to Carly's question, in that yes, we will meet with the daycare, with the community sites again, once we learn more from the budget meeting.
So between now and then, they're free to call and ask questions, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal is an open dialogue to make, and what we shared when we were at the meeting at the library, that like the options I'm going to share with the budget committee, I intend to share with them. I intend to be fully transparent on here's the various scenarios we looked at. and to be open with the community about the different financial impacts to the school district. Because as an example, one of the most significant financial impacts to the district is going to be state equalization aid. State equalization aid is directly affected by our student count. As you will see again next year with the decline in the student count, it's going to have an impact. An impact on state equalization aid affects every property taxpayer in the district. So this is a very important decision, but in order to make it, we need to make sure we're working off of the best information we can. But it is our goal, Mark, to be as transparent and open with the community about this as possible, so that everyone has the same information. And then ultimately, in the end, we hope to be able to make sure that every organization can come out of this state budget situation in the best spot that each organization possibly can. That's what we're hoping for.
Excellent, thank you.
Rebecca, go
Just to
ahead.
flag, one of
Yeah.
the questions that I got is, when are the board meetings that those discussions are happening? Because I think there is some interest among the providers in attending.
Sure.
And being able to hear firsthand what that discussion is.
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. So initially, what we have planned is next Friday, we have a budget committee meeting scheduled. The following Monday is the November board meeting, where we would be sharing, not an action item, we would just be reporting out from the budget committee. That the budget committee had an opportunity to see the information, we could share what that looked like. And then if you look at December, we do have written on there that we are looking to have some type of decision at the December board meeting, which would then allow us to communicate very clearly the best we could with all of the centers, so that they have plenty of time to then figure out how they're planning to approach this topic too. And that will give them time with this new state deadline to then decide which path they think they want to pursue, and especially knowing whatever path the board decides to follow with 4-year-olds.
And also, Carly, another opportunity is the November 19th school funding presentation we'll have. I asked Miranda to send a flyer to all of the 4K sites. So that's another opportunity for them to also come and ask questions based on what we know at that time as well. So there are a couple opportunities there.
So how soon after the budget committee does the video become available to the public?
Let me see if Annie knows that. Do you know how soon? Okay, 24 hours.
Okay, so that'd be another option. I mean, knowing we're meeting in the morning, many of them might not be able to attend the budget committee, but they could at least view it and get more information that way.
Yes.
I appreciate the conversation, because we're definitely going to be needing to have a lot of conversation about the 4-year-old program in the next couple of months. Rebecca, would you mind scrolling back to the slide? Perfect. So I'm more than happy to have further discussion and answer any questions you have, but I just put on the slide what the administrative recommendation is. The tax levies on the left, the expenditures that coincide with the tax levy are on the right. If you do approve what you see on the screen, I will then work with Annie to make sure we can best communicate this out to the community. If you do approve this, we do have the tax levy forms ready to request Carly's consideration of signatures tonight. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. There are other documents in your board book. I'm more than happy to open up any of them that you want to talk through or have questions about. Really, this is a culmination of a lot of the feedback that you've already provided over the last 6 to 9 months. But with that being said, we could certainly jump into anything you would like to jump into tonight, and I'm open to any questions, feedback, thoughts that you want to share.
I appreciate all the time you have spent, Steve, to manage the tax levy down to where we were in July. That took a lot, and I do appreciate it, and I hope our community appreciates it. So if there are no questions, I would take a motion to approve both the fourth draft of the budget and the tax levy as presented tonight. And we're gonna do that by a roll call vote when we have a first and a second.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, Carly.
Aye.
Myself, yes. Ted?
Aye.
John is not here. Mark?
Aye.
Heather is gone, and Chris.
Aye.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that. All right, and thank you, Steve, for walking us through a lot of information, and it was very clear. I
Thank
mean,
you.
Yeah, it was good, good job. Okay, the second item on our agenda tonight is our high school planning, and looking at both long-term and short-term, what we need to do with our current middle school and planning for the future. And we have some partners here. Jay and Robin are here to join us. Steve, do you want to kick this off and then turn it over, or how are we doing this?
Dr. Brown is going to take the beginning of the
Oh, I'm sorry.
presentation,
Yes,
so
Dr. Brown.
she is ready to go.
Yes, I am ready to go.
Good.
Good evening again, everyone. And as Steve mentioned a little earlier, we do thank you for agreeing to add this agenda item to our tax levy conversation, the tax levy and budget conversation this evening. We thought it was an appropriate time to add this as an agenda item, given that this will be the only additional item that we will discuss this evening, which is in regards to our high school, the scope of high school planning. Before we get started, I would like to first thank all of our teachers who embarked upon this journey with us in terms of going on field trips with us to other school sites. Also attending a series of meetings at the high school to really help us understand through their lens what makes the most sense in terms of the work that we're trying to do. In addition to our teachers, I'd like to thank our high school administrators, Brian, Deanne, and Nick. It is without question that when we would call on them, that they were ready, willing, and able to engage in this discussion. Our central office staff, thank you, Steve, Tim, Annie, and John for engaging in this conversation. Our board members, thank you for your support and for pushing us even further into this work and asking really good questions along the way to get us to where we are today. Thank you to EUA and Vogel, Jay, Robin, and Mike. Thank you for hanging in there with us and remaining steadfast in the work. And then finally to our community for your unrelenting support that allows us to be able to do our best work for our students and families and our community. Moving on to the next slide, you will see our mission, vision, and equity statements. Our mission statement, committed to children, committed to community, committed to excellence. Our vision statement, the Waunakee Community School District is a collaborative learning community that works with students, staff, families, and the community to ensure that every student is ready for college and career through a focus on data, research-based best practices, and engagement with students to be active partners in their learning. And then finally, our equity statement, the Waunakee Community School District embraces the differences among our students, staff, and families. We work to provide a safe environment with access to resources, opportunities, and instruction for all students to reach their full potential in the classroom and beyond. We strive to create a culture of dialogue, acceptance, and inclusion. We are committed to engaging all students so that they may thrive academically, socially, and emotionally in an ever-changing multicultural society. As we move on to the next slide, this is the agenda for, thank you, Rebecca. Our agenda and timeline of events, I will just share with you briefly. As we continue to engage in discussions about high school planning, Our goals were to focus on make our students a priority, make our staff a priority. Our focus on goal number 1, which the board approved earlier in the school year, by 2029, all of our schools and the district will significantly exceed expectations or increase by 2 points annually, and I am happy to say we are well on our way. And then high school long-term planning, in the long term, as it relates to what we will need to do in the short term, which you will hear more about tonight. In the timeline, you will notice we will talk about scope and time tonight, and I think Jay will bring additional information to us next week around cost. But what's most important is for you to know that where we started, we have streamlined and prioritized many of those questions that board members have for us to really make a determination around what we believe our priorities should be for at least summer 2026 and potentially summer 2027, which we will hear a little bit more about. After that, at the end of the presentation, we will provide an opportunity for you to ask questions. If you would allow us to get through the scope and then ask questions, that would be wonderful, although I do know that can be a challenge sometimes, and that's okay. So for the next slide, Rebecca, if you would go to the next slide for me, please. Thank you. So for our high school campus, the long-term planning, our goal is to create a modern high school campus and to ensure that we have all of our students in one building receiving instruction during the school day. For the short term, we're looking at providing high school administration with the option to utilize the existing middle school, which we are affectionately calling the South Campus, for their use for the upcoming school year. Short-term financial decisions are tied to long-term goals as much as possible. In other words, we are looking to create an infrastructure where what we do in the short term will ultimately be what can still remain in the long term. We will continue to offer high school face cooking class taught at the middle school, meaning the South Campus. We will maximize the opportunity for teachers to have their own classrooms, additional lunch opportunities for students looking for a less crowded environment over at the South Campus, and then also a continuation of what we are calling our Waunakee program, our special education program, to house that particular program in the existing middle school, which you all know at this point is being housed over in the industrial complex this year. Next slide, Rebecca. Thank you. So looking forward to summer 2026, which is our short-term timeline, this just outlines once again what you have seen before, where you, in April 2024, the school board approved our partnership with EUA and Vogel to evaluate the high school. And then you can see next from October 30th to November 10th, which is the next school board meeting, is the window which we will share this information with you tonight, but also looking for some additional direction from you on the 10th at the school board meeting. Then spring 26, we're looking for bid approval based on what is determined at the November meeting. We're looking at summer 26 construction, and then a potential question on the ballot for a November 26 referendum. Moving on to the next slide. This timeline here is essentially what I just shared with you, but what you may find as board members after you learn about the information we put together is you may take it upon yourselves to direct us to do a portion of the work in summer 26 and maybe have another phase in summer 27. It all depends on how you look at this work. And then thinking about, once we learn what we will do, a future potential referendum, maybe later on a ballot. And so at this time, what I'd like to do, we're excited about being able to present the details of this information to you this evening. And so what I will do at this time is turn it over to Steve, who will begin sharing the next slide with you around site safety first. As you know, you approved a traffic study with Roxanne Johnson to take a look at Community Drive over at the high school. And so Steve will provide more information to the board regarding how that panned out. So Steve.
All right, thank you, Dr. Brown.
You're welcome.
So move on to the next slide. Oh, Rebecca and I are both moving on at the same time. So as Dr. Brown shared with you, what our main point of tonight is to give you some background on the scope that we're suggesting we bring forward to the November board meeting, which would then give EUA direction to design and go out to market with the bids. The commitment that the board would be making is really focused at this point on the design end. So you would be committing potentially in November for EUA to move forward with the design portion of whatever scope you're comfortable with. Jay will be able to answer any questions you might have about the construction costs, but just like any other project we've done, there will be the bidding process and Vogel leading that effort to come back with the prices, which at some point you may decide you would like to change what you're doing or continue moving ahead. So right now our focus is really about scope and design. And so for this slide, what we're sharing with you is an initial plan based off the traffic study that has been completed to create a 3-gate system on Community Drive. The main intent behind the 3-gate system is to keep traffic away from students who would be moving back and forth between the buildings. In effect, if you see the arrows near the existing high school entryway, the arrows indicate where a vehicle would go. So let's say you pull in and you're dropping your student off at the beginning of second hour. There would be a new area there where you would just loop around, drop the student off near the office, and then you would exit back out. You would not intersect in any way with a student that could be exiting the high school at, obviously, you know, there's 3 different places that a student could decide to walk out of and then cross across the parking lot to get to the existing middle school. That vehicle that would be driving in to drop their student off would not be able to proceed through. On the other end of South Street, the same thing would happen. The vehicle would not be allowed to enter in the first place to be able to drive through there. So the bottom line is a system like this would avoid any student and or vehicle intersection occurring during the instructional day. So this is the outcome of the traffic study, and again, as we move forward to November, this is just one of the different things we would want you to think about or consider including in the scope for next summer. I'm going to go through each of the different items. So another area that we're going to ask for your consideration of would be to bring this building up to the same standard that we have with all of our other schools. So as you know, the board approved the modern clock bell and PA system at Arboretum Elementary School for last summer. The middle school, the existing middle school, is the only building remaining that hasn't had the investment in clock bell and PA to have the modern standards that exist in our other buildings. We have held off on that building until we wanted to make the determination as to whether or not students would be in that building. We also are suggesting a new security/attendance office, which would primarily be able to assist and monitor as students enter the existing middle school building from the high school property. So the main point of this slide is just indicate that we will be recommending consideration of the building upgrades to basically match the same systems we have in the other buildings, as well as create a space where an adult would be able to continuously, whether you call it a security or attendance officer, continuously be able to monitor the comings and goings of students in and out of this building. So I'll go to the next
One thing
slide.
on that one, Steve.
Yep, go ahead, Jay.
The laundry room and janitor closet is because where the new office would be is in that existing space. So then we're replicating that across the hall.
And thank you, Jay. So a high school department move. So to provide some background on this, what was really important for us to do was to make sure that we identified classrooms, and this was really the work of EUA, working with Scott Bauer as well as input from Vogel, on maximizing natural light, and also taking a look at which classrooms would, so you could see on there, space to be used, no work needed. We wanted to identify rooms that were basically ready to go, right? So a high school teacher could move in there. We don't need to do any remodeling. It's ready to go. Other classrooms would have light remodeling. There are some rooms that have some carpeting that haven't been replaced yet in our normal maintenance cycle. So the remodeling in this space is limited. So there are no plans here, as we've talked in the past, about removing walls, converting, 3 classrooms into 2. This is basically moving in and utilizing the space with, let's call it, maybe some rooms might need paint, some might need carpeting, but generally speaking, trying to use the space that exists today. So you're not seeing major remodeling occurring in the space. We wanted to scale back what you have previously seen into something that would be a much lower cost. An ultimate goal of this, again, as well, would be to make sure that space is being opened up at the high school then to maximize the potential for all classroom teachers to have their own space. So this would be what it would look like to move a department across from the high school to the existing middle school building. Family and consumer ed. What we're doing here is we're talking about adding a demo station, a teaching station, to both the existing middle school and the high school family and consumer ed space. As board members, you know that in the brand new middle school, as an example, you would define the teaching space there for family and consumer ed as a modern learning environment. The instructional methods that the teacher is going to be able to have with the students will involve a totally different way of teaching and presenting to the students based on what you do see in new schools that are being built today. We would like to, at a very modest version, implement something similar at the high school so that the instructors, whether they're at both either the existing middle school or high school, would have access to a similar station to be able to present to their their students. But we are not recommending wholesale remodeling of the family and consumer ed rooms. The reason for that is we're keeping in mind the longer term vision for the building, because it is possible that in the longer term vision for the building, family and consumer ed could be moved. So we want to be very careful about making investments in the short term that could conflict with a long-term plan. Mark?
So in the short term for FACE, are we looking at modernizing the appliances or trying to maintain what we have for the short term?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with the first bullet point up there, we're really referring to the teacher's station, so to speak, to be able to present and teach to the students. You can see where we basically are referencing document cameras and screens to allow for better demonstration of skills. But our current thinking, again, that's why we're running this by the board tonight, would be to keep the existing appliances that are there until a determination would be made about the long-term plan and where might family and consumer ed go. The thought behind adding the improved teaching station would be to improve the ability for the teacher to present the skills to students without necessarily completely redoing the space, which could end up being a concern if the long-term thought process would be to move family consumer ed, as an example, to a space with natural light in the future. So it's improvement basically for the instructor and for the class, but not complete remodeling of the spaces. And so another thing that we're talking about is utilization of the gym. So you can see that the gymnastic program has long been slated to be able to utilize the gym at the existing middle school. But we're identifying this space as no work needed. So we're saying the gymnastics program could just move in. We could continue to be able to utilize the gym as it currently exists. In fact, it has a relatively brand new floor in that gym. The roof above it is relatively brand new. It's actually in very good shape. The cafeteria, we want to provide an opportunity for high school students to have a smaller lunchroom area, age-appropriate furniture, a fresh coat of paint to really just spruce it up. But we want to provide that opportunity for students who are looking for another alternative for their lunch hour. We definitely have that described as more light renovation. There's not going to be any walls torn down. It's utilizing the existing space in a different way for high school students who would prefer that option versus the much larger cafeteria setting that we have at the existing high school. We've talked about the K-8 program. We are looking to eliminate the need for rental space. As Dr. Brown mentioned, we are renting space across the parking lot from the wellness clinic. We are looking at making some improvements in this space to really try to create a longer term home for that program. So we're looking at a location that we believe would be the right fit long term. So this is one of the recommendations that we would have, is to move away from the rental for this program to move it into the existing middle school building. In the athletic space, as board members, you know that we did move the varsity softball field across the street. The varsity softball field did have a number of improvements that were paid for by the school board, but we are missing one component, which is the press box and concessions area. So the varsity softball field currently does not have that feature to it. We paused the conversation around the softball press box and storage around the time that the board made the decision to look at a master athletic plan and really pause any work. It wasn't paused due to a lack of wanting this facility. It was paused just for getting all of the work in the athletic facility organized. In fact, we did have a quote from Vogel at one point that was presented to the facility committee to show what that would look like. But the committee wanted to focus more on the bigger picture of the long-term plan. So in the athletic space, we are recommending moving forward with the press box in the softball space. Let's see here. Rebecca, could you advance it for me? Removal of scope. So we do think it's important to have the conversation with the board about what we are suggesting removing from the scope as well. So in the November 22 referendum, there were dollars allocated for several projects that have been placed on hold. Those projects include the pool locker room and family room. It includes the large group instructional space and deferred maintenance primarily in the early 1970s portion of the high school. We are suggesting that that becomes a permanent deferral of work. So we would suggest that we do not proceed with that work at this time, and the board would reevaluate this conversation in light of whatever comes out of the long-term plan. We think that investing in any of these improvements at this time as well could be investments that later on the board would prefer not to have made based on whatever comes out of the longer-term plan. So we are suggesting removing that scope at this time. Again, it's something we want to talk with you about and make sure that we're on the same page, but that's another suggestion of ours. Rebecca, if you want to go to the next slide. There's some things that you don't see here for the summer of '27 that you may be wondering about. We have talked about the possibility of moving the wellness clinic into the middle school. So the wellness clinic is a space that we rent in the community. There certainly would be the potential to move the wellness clinic into the existing middle school space. However, with that being said and done, we are concerned there may be a potential conflict with where we would locate the where we would locate the wellness clinic and where we may need to reserve classrooms for the board's discussion on 4K over the next couple of months. So as a result of that, we want to make sure the board can have whatever conversation and outcome you want on 4K, and we are suggesting pausing that, which would mean at least another year's worth of rental out in the community where we're currently at. We think one additional year of rental puts the board in a better position to be able to maximize that space at the middle school, however you choose to do that. But again, as the point of tonight's conversation would be, if you as a board feel strongly that that should be included in the 2026 scope, you could give direction to the EUA team to start finding a way to make that work sooner rather than later. You do see a number of other items that are listed with a question mark in summer 2027 scope. So what we're suggesting here, I'll give you a good example. The very last item on here, you've certainly heard discussion or seen discussion around the idea of a team room or inclement weather area on the athletic complex. We are suggesting that could potentially be a summer 2027 scope. However, if you as a board feel like our initial thought process here has scaled this back further than you were thinking, you could give us direction on November, at our November board meeting, to include more items back into the scope for the summer of '26. Our overall thought process here was very simple. We want to make sure that we are accomplishing short-term objectives without compromising the long-term plan. So as board members this summer, you clearly indicated the long-term vision would be for high school students to be located in the existing high school building and to receive their education all in that location. So given that thought process, our short-term decisions are lined up to have to be cost-effective solutions that won't compromise the long-term vision. So as a result of that, we've scaled back the work quite a bit from drawings that you've seen over the last couple of months. We thought it would be important to run this by you tonight. You're more than welcome to give us some initial feedback, especially if there are things that you think that we scaled back that should have still been under consideration for this November. This is really, I would describe this as a draft. As Dr. Brown indicated, she wanted this to be in front of you tonight, so you had a couple of weeks to think about it. because we're on a timeline in which EUA would need direction at the November board meeting in order to go through the design process to ultimately allow Jay and his team to be back here during the month of March to be able to present to you the numbers. One thing you're missing tonight, of course, in order to help make your ultimate decisions would be what are some of the budgets associated with these projects and how is this going to be funded? So Jay has been working on that. So all along while we've been monitoring and working through these plans, Jay has been continually keeping the numbers updated on his end. He is prepared on November 10th to talk through, as an example, if you had a question as a board member, what would be a budget for the press box for the softball field? Jay would be able to give you a very good estimate as to what that would be. And then Jay and I together will be able to make sure that there's full understanding for all board members of exactly where we are with the projects. Where are we at with the middle school? Where are we at with the completion of, we can talk about Heritage as an example, where Vogel cut a check back to the district to complete and wrap up the Heritage project. And where are we at with maintenance? So you as board members would be well positioned to know what funds are available. You would know from Jay what budget figures do some of these projects carry, and then you would be able to then give Robin the green light on what you would like to see Robin and her team design. So that's kind of the setup that we have over the next couple of weeks. Our goal tonight was really to hear from you if you have initial reaction to what we're showing for summer 26 or holding off for summer 27. We'll open it up to the board members. You're certainly welcome to ask questions of Dr. Brown. Our team in the back is here that can answer questions as well, Jay and Robin. So we'd like to just set this up as a discussion to chat about anything that we just reviewed with you.
Thank you. All right.
Was there any, I thought about it more and kind of answered my own question, but was there any thought of not using the cafeteria in the middle school as a cafeteria? Is that the cost of that happening, staffing it and all of that? I was wondering if it had been thought about in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be best if Brian or Dan would maybe come and just explain the vision of the cafeteria a little bit and kind of what your thoughts are and how many students you think maybe would go over. And
we don't know for sure how many students would go over. We really want to make it a welcoming space. Currently, that commons area is pretty massive, and we're finding that it's overwhelming to a lot of students.
Yeah.
There's just no good spot to go for kids that don't want to be around literally 1,000 other folks. So that's actually one of our more important projects to us, is to have an alternate location for kids to feel comfortable eating on campus and just feel welcome, not having to leave. So that would be the idea. I don't know how many people, we're hoping to make it inviting. We were just talking to Annie about doing some branding and doing some good furniture, things that would make it, an area that they'd want to be in and want to stay and again, feel comfortable.
And it wouldn't be a full cafeteria. We're thinking grab and go. So a lot of the items the kids already get, so, and then during passing time, they wouldn't be coming, they wouldn't have to necessarily come back through the cafeteria and go into the Tahoe section. They can grab what they want there on their way, and garbage, we haven't thought about that. The amount of garbage that'll be tracked around, but we think the space is available. We'll have kids who will definitely use it instead of hiding out in the hallways and vegetables, and it took them a while to kind of take those tables and chairs up on the mezzanine to gravitate towards those. We've added a bunch since COVID, and those are full every day. The kids really like that. They like that natural sunlight, and there are for sure kids that will be their designated go-to space if it's available. Yeah.
In reference to the cafeteria, it came to my attention, and Monica, I think you heard this also, when we were working with the dance team on our welcome back. They indicated that they've been told they get that cafeteria for practice space. Is that?
The South Campus cafeteria?
Yes.
Oh,
They
interesting.
think they're gonna get that for practice starting next year. And I only say that because as you look at furniture, you might wanna coordinate with that group because they think they're coming there to practice.
Interesting, okay.
I would say that that was a request when we
Oh.
were meeting with staff.
Okay.
It did make it into some of the many options that we created.
Okay.
But it's not currently being
Okay. They.
planned for that
it-
at the moment. But
And I know that they've always squeezed into that kind of storage spot.
Mhm.
They probably could definitely use some nicer digs to do their thing, because, anyway, as you consider that, you might want to put that, because they thought they would get that. The other question I had is, I know the upper level is newer, you got the library there, where's the elevator in that, and will you need more passing time that's just that much further?
Well, if it was up to the kids and the staff, it'd be 20 minutes, but no, we won't.
Okay.
That's the argument they make, but you can make it from the south campus to the far end of the north campus in about 6 minutes if you just walk at a normal pace. Now, if you're stopping several times, yeah, you'd want more time, of course, but generally you can make it. What we've been doing is the culinary class lets out a minute or two early from the south campus, and they get there when the bell rings, and so they're going.
So-
Now, if we had staff that had to transition between the two buildings, that'd be
tougher.
it'd be more complicated. But we do have some staff that travel from the current middle school to the high school, but that time's built in, so we make sure that they have plenty of time to move between the spaces.
So where is the elevator in that building?
So just outside of the existing cafeteria, if you go back to the one. So the cafeteria is a large
That,
rectangle in the corner.
Right.
Yep, just above the yellow box on the right hand, yep.
oh, so
right
very
there.
close to where the kids would come in?
Yes.
Is where the-
So they should be able to get to that and then get to the class and go down there on their way back out.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
We have the vast majority of kids taking the stairs, and
And I know there would, but you want
Yeah, there's
to
some escalators and
accommodate
wheelchairs
for,
and
yeah.
whatnot. What's that?
Put escalators in,
They
speed
would
it
love
up.
that.
We can add that to the long-term plan, maybe as an option for you guys, but.
People move it.
Other questions?
So did,
More just a comment, I appreciate the comprehensiveness of the vision, short-term, to facilitate enhanced opportunities for both staff and students, and I think it's a very reasonable vision that you guys have presented tonight.
Absolutely. And, it seems so doable in the time frame that we have.
so the question that I had, and Steve, you talked to it a little bit. So the 13 classrooms on the second floor, is that intended to open up space so if there were to be remodeling done in the high school, that there's places for those classes to relocate to? Is that kind of the intent of it? Because, is that the idea?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Robin actually does have drawings of the spaces in the high school that would open up. And there is remodeling that could be done. The balance with that is the long-term vision of the high school. Without knowing where some departments would go long-term, the question is how much of an investment to be made in the high school now. So we can show you those because they're actually as part of the presentation that Robin has, what that would look like. We've put the focus more on these classrooms to the middle school, the existing middle school. The intent would be to go into those rooms. The question is, what, if any, remodeling would be done in them? But Robin can definitely speak to that.
Did you mean opening up those classrooms? We would move a department from the high school into those rooms.
Right.
That's what it's used for. And then eventually, if we're gonna do a major remodel at the high school, we could use more of the South Campus space as we have to relocate and be flexible with that. Was
Got
that
it.
kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, because my concern was like if it's not adequate for current middle school students, we talked about clearly high school students are bigger, you know, we're not taking out walls anymore. I know that there's age appropriate furniture that's going in. But is that gonna be a good learning environment for those kids, those high schoolers now that are gonna be put back into the middle
Every
school?
room we picked has a window. That's the important part, so the natural lighting, that's how we sold it. We took the English staff there, because that's kind of who we've talked to and identified that could make this work. And I think we were all pleasantly surprised by the current state of a lot of the rooms. So it was, I think there was people very excited about our walkthrough, which we did last Thursday.
And they are similar in size to the English classrooms that we have
Okay.
now.
Which
Got it.
only 2 English teachers currently have windows.
Got it.
And so I would also just add that there were some other departments that also, not all teachers had their current classrooms. So as English moves out, some of those other departments that are remaining there,
Have
now
access.
they have the opportunity to have their own classroom. So in the short term, they would move into an existing classroom without any major renovation.
Okay.
But some of the spaces would be potentially earmarked for a longer-term vision.
Okay.
So my question was gonna be, can you give us just sort of a brief overview of like, what does the shuffle look like in the high school building if the English
Yeah.
department comes out? Like, who is moving around there?
Yeah,
We'd start with the folks that don't have their own classroom currently, so.
Which is that some folks from every department?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. World language, actually, I think it's every department at this point, right? World language,
World-
science, social studies.
Math has 3.
That are
don't have-
sharing.
yeah, that's
So
shared.
potentially you might end up moving a whole subject area, so they're centrally located, or would they just, you know, so world language might be totally moved, as an example, into where English is, so that they're all in the same area?
World language is already in its own area, but we have other departments that aren't, like social studies and math are divided up. We
Social
haven't
studies
gotten
is
that far in our
split
planning
out,
yet.
Yeah, okay, just wondering.
Bit of a shuffle, possibly.
That'd be the
but
next
to your
step.
question, Carly, Robin could show you that if.
The longer-term
Yeah,
vision, is that what you're looking for?
yeah.
Or just the rooms that are left over
Yeah,
at
the
the high
rooms that are
school.
left over. at the
I
high
was
school.
thinking more short-term.
Okay.
Yeah.
The exact rooms that are left over and who moves into which room hasn't been determined yet.
Sure.
But there are, yes, some math rooms that would be moving. There were some areas like Warrior Media was looking for some additional space. They may claim a room. They're not getting all of the renovation components that they would like to outfit that room, but they might be able to expand into some additional space, things like that.
Yeah, it certainly is a short term, and it may not be ideal, but it's gonna enhance the teaching experience,
Sure.
because they're there. And
better.
so they should be able to be ready to roll right away. Set up, take down, takes away from instructional time, so that the instructional time should be enhanced considerably for those teachers who are moving.
And
Which
we,
again,
we
helps
currently
our-
have a situation where we have every room used during contact time.
Yeah,
And that means
Including some
every,
rooms that probably
That
shouldn't
shouldn't
be
be.
used. Yeah.
and so we have staff that are in those spaces, and they're not made for that
Classroom
experience. And
No.
so this way, the kids know where the staff are gonna be, because the room they might be in contact time might not be the room they've ever teach in. So kids will know where people are at, as now we have them all over.
And teachers can stay put, to your point, too,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
have materials, so it'll just be a lot more, you know.
That will eliminate a lot of stress.
Absolutely.
And the testing center is a great example. We can't have kids in the testing center
Which is the perfect time to take a test
during
during
contact time,
Right.
because we have a staff member
Yeah,
using
right.
that space for their kids.
So some of the things that have been priorities for the middle school building in the short-term plan, like the gymnastics program, like, is there a long-term plan there? Like, I'm guessing we're not planning to like add another gym to the long-term vision of the high school, but like what is the goal with some of those things that like have to be in the middle school short-term?
So the gymnastics, the space is available and there's no work to it, so it made sense to make that a priority item to
Sure.
just move into it. The actual long-term plan, because we've been sort of focusing on this, we now need to get back to that and
Okay.
come back with that vision of what may be torn down, what might be added to, what might be renovated, based on the special board meeting that you guys had, and going back to that, so then the next steps will be to come back to you with what that goal is. So the idea is that in the end, these classrooms that are up here now will go back to a space in the main high school building. And then something else may move in there. It may be at risk, it might be a district office, it might be tear out some walls and put a weight room in there. It might be
Wellness clinic.
a wellness clinic, it might be quite a wide range of things. This is just sort of, that's why we're trying to minimize
Sure.
what happens.
But Robin, the gym will probably always still be a gym. We as a district aren't going to eliminate gyms that are functional
Always
and
needed.
healthy. And so, could that be a permanent spot for gymnastics?
Yes.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, probably. And it probably won't need to be touched, but
Right. So,
depending on what they.
yeah, you know, those are still possibilities that I think are on
Yeah.
the table.
We're not seeing at the moment a need for an additional gymnasium space to be added anywhere.
I
But
guess,
as
yeah, I had
things
sort of
change,
forgotten that the discussion was like probably that middle school gym.
Will
And like
probably
the majority
always
of that middle
stay.
school structure is there being used for something.
And
Yeah.
even the part that was renovated to music could be another gym
If we needed
if
it.
we need one.
right. So that's where it's like, it's not completely off the table that something may develop.
Right.
Because, and just so everybody knows, like, we're talking big picture ideas until a referendum passes, and then we actually really start to design. So there's always some change between what boxes we show you now and what the end design is 9 months to a year later, after more in-depth conversations with staff and administration.
So kind of a big picture of that timeline I saw, you looked at a referendum for November of 2026. And I know we need operational,
But then on the next slide, it said,
I know what it is,
Yeah.
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 But where do we even start thinking about the big picture? You know, is that referendum for, you know, just these temporary kind of, do you know what
So,
I'm asking?
yeah.
What is the big picture and when are we kind of targeting that referendum? Because as you said, you don't really start your design until we start
Right.
that plan.
Right.
And maybe that is a discussion for us yet. Is it 2026? Is it 2028?
Right. And so, back in '24, we were asked to target towards November 26th.
Correct.
So that was when we came together with those options, not really knowing where the tax levies were gonna hit, what your priorities were. And then we got some feedback about, you know, scaling some things back, getting into some more detail. And that sort of is, as I mentioned, our next step to get back to that. The reason this says 26 is because at that special board meeting, it wasn't taken off the table. So we wanted to say like, okay, if you go to survey and you feel that you want to go to 26,
That's still,
yes, so that is that bigger picture. What we're talking about in this one is likely to be more funded off of the 2022 funds
Okay.
that are remaining.
all right.
However, some of the things that are on that, you know, maybe 27 list or deferred list is sort of the fact that if you decide not to go to referendum in November 26, and say you get some community feedback, you decide, you know what, we're not even gonna try for another 4 years. 6 years. You may choose to invest some more money or do a few more things on that list because you know that middle school will be occupied by students for 6, 8 years. And if that's the case, I just wanted to illustrate that you can, do some more work with those 22 referendum funds. Still, because those are, when the middle school closes out and it's complete in June, you might have a better sense of, okay, well, it turns out we have X dollars, we'd like to put it towards this. But the goal is, we're still striving for having a design, high-level design in place for a 26 referendum. Unless, say in, another month or two, you're like, no, just pause, and then you can pause, but.
I would like you to move forward.
Yeah. So we're still moving forward with that assumption, and then if you decide to table it and wait until 28 or, 30 or whatever, that's up to you guys. Is that, okay?
So, question for you, Steve. Given that the summer 2026 work is going to most likely be paid for by existing funds, but we don't know what's gonna happen with 4K and the $1 million plus delta of possibilities there. What's your thought process?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, Carly, which is why Dr. Brown was in my office the other day charting all this out, because the scope of it is quite significant when you look at, first of all, the decision on reducing the tax levy means the board has to weigh in on some of those strategies that we talked about. Some of those strategies free up more funds for this discussion. Some of those strategies limit the funds that would be freed up for this discussion. As an example, refinancing was on the table. Refinancing would mean that savings at the middle school could go towards this effort as opposed to reducing the tax levy. Another example is the $1 million rebate you've received already, and the much larger one that's coming could be used towards this effort. They could be used towards the tax levy. The 4K intersects with this very significantly because you as a board will see a range of options, so you can start seeing the financial implications of 4K, which is why we're trying to be careful with the existing middle school space in case that might be needed as we move forward with that discussion. And then ultimately in the end, you as a board are going to want to be taking a look at the 26-27 financial plans to see, are we going to have continued loss from state equalization aid? And if that's the case, how do we want to address that? But that's an excellent point, Carly. There are 3 or 4 very big, I would say, topics that are colliding, which is why Dr. Brown has sketched it out on the board in my office, trying to plan this through over the next 3 months. And Dr. Brown, welcome any comments that you might want to add on that.
So just really reiterating what you just said, Steve, in that this has been part of our total thought process, Carly. All of these things are mutually inclusive, right? As it relates to giving you all of the information that we have, giving it to you to make a very sound decision. And so the next huge piece obviously will be 4K, and we'll bring those pieces to you to see. So we have a minimal, we have a moderate, we have a minimal plan, a moderate plan, and also a more aggressive plan in the 4K space. And looking at where we landed with all of those other pieces that Steve just mentioned, our goal is to position you to make the best decision for 4K to ensure that we can maintain our budget and keep it consistent with what we have tried to do historically, but understanding that we're also moving into a new biennium budget very short. So the first, that'll be a 1-year plan for the 4K site. And with the new governor and moving into a new biennium budget, There are some uncertainties there that we're trying to predict to the best of our ability. But back to Steve's point, we are factoring in every single aspect of what we know to give you the best information possible to make a sound decision. But everything's mutually inclusive is how we describe where we are in education today, at least in the state of Wisconsin.
And I am really not saying that, you know, we will go to referendum, but I guess I would like that design plan to continue, because I realize, I mean, this is a colliding of many, many things, but we also need to keep looking at that target, because we have kids who need that space.
So while we're working on whatever you may approve for summer design work, we'll also be working on that next step long-range plan. I do want to just bring back one of the things you mentioned earlier, Steve, was that if you decide to ask us to start to design something, but you decide not to construct it later because of some later decisions or things that arise or the 4K, that is also an option. You get the design, it can be tabled, you can build it the following year if you decide to do that.
Thank you. Great. I appreciate all of you coming and sharing and answering questions. Any follow-up questions for our panel?
Steve, I just got one more question. The last one there, the team rooms, the inclement weather area, is that something worth starting to design just to get a price, just so that can help make other decisions?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So Jay is pretty far along with being able to give you that. So like as a
Okay.
board member, if you wanted that,
The 10th.
he could definitely do that. And the design is far enough along that we could absolutely share that information with you on the 10th.
Okay, that'd be great, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
I would agree with that, Chris. That's that seems to be a real need then. All right.
Well, it's good to know that we only have a few decisions to make.
I'm just waiting for the schedule of the special meetings to begin. But the winter's coming and we don't have as much to do, so bring them on. All right, any other questions, comments? If not, we could adjourn. Anybody?
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Do that.